Spiders are supposed to have their organs neatly tucked away inside their bodies. They're supposed to breathe with some kind of lung. And they definitely aren't supposed to be the size of a dinner plate. But in the freezing, absolutely crushing depths of Antarctica, there's a creature that seems to break every single one of these rules. They're called sea spiders, and almost nothing about them is normal. It's like evolution itself injected some deformed genome straight into their DNA. For 140 years, we didn't even know how they raised their young, but a recent discovery has finally solved the mystery, and it reveals a strategy unlike anything you've ever seen. These are the aliens of the deep, and their story completely changes what we thought was even possible for life on this planet. Before we get into the truly bizarre parts, let's get one thing straight. Despite the name, sea spiders aren't the kind of spiders you find in your house. They belong to an ancient group of marine arthropods called pycnogonids, which are basically distant, ancient cousins of land spiders. But honestly, calling them relatives feels like a stretch. Visually, they are pure science fiction. Imagine a creature that is almost entirely leg. They have this tiny, useless-looking body, way too small to hold any real organs, and a long, straw-like tube they use to slurp up the guts of soft animals like sea anemones. And then there are the legs. 8, 10, or even 12 impossibly long, spindly legs that make the rest of the animal look like a joke. Now, you can find these things in oceans all over the world, but most of them are tiny, delicate, and easy to miss. The ones we're talking about today, though, are different. They live in one of the most extreme habitats on Earth, the seafloor of the Southern Ocean. Here, under a massive ceiling of ice, in total darkness, and under insane pressure, these sea spiders don't just survive, they become giants. This bizarre transformation is the first sign that the normal rules of biology just don't apply down here. The question isn't just how they get so big, but what that size forces their bodies to do to stay alive. And the answer is a journey into a biological funhouse, where every organ is in the wrong place, and every function is just weird. In biology, there's this strange phenomenon called polar gigantism. It's a trend where animals living in the freezing Arctic and Antarctic waters grow way bigger than their relatives in warmer places. You see it in all sorts of creatures, but nowhere is the difference more insane than with sea spiders. While most species are smaller than your fingernail, the giants of Antarctica can have a leg span of over a foot, the size of a dinner plate. And for decades, scientists had no idea why. Growing that big costs a ton of energy, and the freezing water, which is around -1.8 degrees Celsius, should slow life down, not supercharge it. The leading theory sounds like a complete paradox. They get huge because of the cold. It all comes down to oxygen. See, cold water can hold way more dissolved oxygen than warm water. At the same time, the extreme cold slows down a creature's metabolism, meaning it needs less oxygen to function. So, you have an environment with a massive surplus of oxygen and creatures that barely need any. This combo basically creates an evolutionary cheat code. For an arthropod like a sea spider, its size is normally limited by how fast it can get oxygen into its body. They don't have complex lungs like we do. But in the oxygen-soaked waters of Antarctica, that limit is just gone. Oxygen is so abundant, it can just diffuse right into their bodies, letting them scale up to monstrous sizes without suffocating. Research led by Dr. Amy Moran and her team at the University of Hawaii has been key to figuring this out. They discovered that while these giants thrive in the cold, they are extremely fragile in warmer, less oxygenated water. In their experiments, The larger sea spiders quickly started to fail and die when oxygen levels dropped, while the smaller ones were fine. This confirms their gigantism is a direct result of the unique chemistry of polar seas, a special trait that locks them into one of the world's most extreme environments. They are giants made of ice and oxygen, but their insane size creates a whole new set of problems that require even more bizarre solutions. So, you're a giant sea spider. You've used the cold, oxygen-rich water to get heinously massive, but your body plan is still based on a tiny ancestor. Your central body is comically small, with barely enough room for anything. So where do you put your organs? And more importantly, how do you breathe and move oxygen around when you lack the basic equipment? The answer is as elegant as it is creepy. You turn your entire body into a lung and your guts into a heart. Let's start with breathing. Sea spiders have no gills, no lungs, nothing. The solution? Their legs are their lungs. A 2017 study confirmed that their exoskeletons, especially on their long legs, are incredibly thin and porous. Oxygen just seeps across this massive surface area and into their circulatory fluid, which is called hemolymph. Their giant legs give them all the surface area they need to power their giant bodies. But absorbing oxygen is just the first step. You have to move it around. In most animals, that's the job of a strong heart. The sea spider's heart, however, is pathetic. It's so weak, it can only manage to pump blood to the very front of the animal. It can't even begin to push fluid down those enormous legs. So, how does oxygen get to the tips of their toes? This is where sea spider biology goes from strange to utterly alien. Their gut does the job of a heart. Yes, you heard that right. The sea spider's digestive tract isn't just in its tiny body. It branches out, sending tubes down the full length of every single leg. And this gut is constantly contracting in a wave-like motion. But in sea spiders, these contractions are so powerful that they vigorously slosh the hemolymph, the fluid carrying the oxygen, back and forth inside the legs, circulating it far more effectively than their tiny heart ever could. Scientists confirmed this by watching dye move through their bodies, and they were stunned. The flow, powered by the gut, moved all through the legs, while the flow from the heart basically stalled out. Even crazier, when they put the sea spiders in low oxygen water, the gut contractions sped up, just like a heartbeat would, desperately trying to circulate what little oxygen was left. This gut as heart system is a revolutionary discovery. With lungs for legs and a gut for a heart, the sea spider isn't just breaking the rules, it's playing a different game entirely. But surviving as a giant alien in the dark is one thing. Ensuring your species continues in this frozen wasteland is another challenge entirely. One that stumped scientists for over a century. For all its biological weirdness, the single biggest question that haunted scientists for over 140 years was, where are the babies? Since these creatures were first discovered in the 1880s, we've known how the smaller sea spiders reproduce. Usually, after the female lays eggs, the male fertilizes them and then glues them to a special pair of his legs. He then carries the eggs around, protecting them until they hatch. It's a classic case of a dedicated dad. But here was the problem. No one had ever seen a giant Antarctic sea spider carrying eggs. Not once. For over a century, divers and submarines had scoured the Antarctic seafloor. They saw thousands of these dinner plate-sized giants. They saw them feeding, walking, and even mating. But never, ever, were the males seen carrying their young. It was a complete mystery. Did they have some totally different way of reproducing? Did they just release their eggs into the water and hope for the best? That seemed unlikely for such a slow, specialized creature. The biggest challenge, of course, was just the environment. Studying anything under the Antarctic ice is a massive undertaking. It's one of the most dangerous places on the planet to do research. So for decades, the question just sat there, unanswered, because no one could get a close enough look. But that all changed in October 2021. Dr. Amy Moran and her team went on an expedition with one goal. They braved the freezing water, diving under the ice to collect mating pairs of the giant sea spider, Colossendice megalonyx. They carefully brought them back to lab tanks, hoping that, for the first time, they could finally see what happens next. After 140 years of guessing, the answer was finally within reach. Back in the lab, the team watched and waited. And what they saw was not what anyone expected, but it solved the 140-year-old mystery instantly. It turns out the giant sea spiders do have a form of paternal care, but it's a masterclass in being sneaky. One of the parents, probably the male, started dealing with the thousands of tiny eggs. But instead of gathering them onto his legs, he spent 2 days meticulously gluing them directly to the rocky bottom of the tank. At first, the little gelatinous blobs of eggs were visible, but then something incredible happened. Within weeks, the egg masses started to just disappear. A thin layer of microscopic algae had grown over them, perfectly blending them into the seafloor. The camouflage was so good that, in the researchers' own words, we could hardly see them, even knowing they were there. The mystery was solved. The reason no one ever saw a male carrying eggs was because they don't. And the reason no one ever found the eggs in the wild was because they become virtually invisible almost right away. The father's job wasn't to carry the eggs, but to stick them somewhere safe and let nature do the hiding. Months later, tiny larvae hatched from these camouflaged nurseries, perfectly safe. This discovery revealed a reproductive strategy that's both simpler and, honestly, way more cunning than what their smaller cousins do. Scientists now think this attach and hide method might be an evolutionary stepping stone, a bridge between species that just release their eggs into the water and those that evolved the more complex behavior of actively carrying their young. It was a solution so simple it hid in plain sight for over a century. The giant Antarctic sea spider is a creature of pure contradiction. It gets its colossal size because of the lethal cold. It breathes through its legs because its body is too small for lungs. It circulates oxygen using its gut because its heart is too weak. And it makes sure its babies survive not by holding on, but by letting go and using the art of camouflage. Every single thing about its existence is a masterclass in evolutionary adaptation, proving that life will find a way in the most hostile places on Earth. For 140 years, this creature held on to its secrets, hidden beneath a layer of ice and deep ocean. Its story is more than just a list of weird facts. It's a powerful reminder of how much we still have to learn about our own planet. These animals are a key part of the Antarctic ecosystem, and understanding them helps us understand how life itself can adapt to the absolute extremes. And honestly, the creepy part is how much we still don't know. If something like the giant sea spider exists down there, what else could be lurking that we haven't seen yet? If you want to dive into more mysteries of the deep, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And let me know in the comments, what's the strangest ocean creature you've ever heard of? Thanks for watching.